So welcome again to this Sutta study with the Dhammadharini Sangha here in Northern California. Today is April 27th. This is a new moon day, and it's the fortnight before the Vesak Full Moon. Vesak is the anniversary when we recollect the Buddha's birth, full enlightenment, and his parinibbana. Today, in particular, we are recalling the moment when the Buddha, the Bodhisattva, I should say, after having studied with the two other teachers and being disappointed, after having joined up with a group of samana companions and practiced extremes of asceticism and mortification of the body, the Bodhisattva on this day came to the recollection of his childhood experience under the rose apple tree of spontaneously obtaining jhana samadhi meditation. And he had the realization that the pleasant feeling connected with samadhi is not the same thing as sensual pleasure, not something to be feared, not something that's an obstacle. He decided to take some nourishment for the sake of meditation. His 5 companions thought he had gone slack and left him. And so then for these next 2-week period of time, the Bodhisattva was meditating by himself. There's several different suttas in the middle-length discourses that mention that moment when the Buddha the Bodhisattva decided to take nourishment and practice jhana. I selected one of them, and that's the one called the Saccaka Sutta, which is number 36 in the middle-length discourses. This is the Longer Discourse with Saccaka. I may summarize some parts of this. Saccaka was a Brahmin. He seems to have quite a skeptical attitude. As a result of this sutta, he criticizes other teachers in comparison to the Buddha, but he doesn't acquire enough faith to take refuge. This sutta has a fair amount of comparison to the previous teaching traditions. This morning, we had a talk with Ajahn Brahmali of Australia. He's a really great teacher in many different aspects. And I had a chance to ask him what he found inspiring about the Bodhisattva's quest and what we could copy. And one of the points that he mentioned is if you're sincere, don't think that you should do it all by yourself. Seek other teachers and listen to other teachers. Even if in the end you become disappointed, as the Bodhisattva was in the other teachers of his time, nevertheless, it was advantageous. Oh, thank you. Somebody's asking if I'm recording. Am I recording? I think so. Custom live streaming? Yes, I'm streaming to YouTube. Okay, thank you for asking. So here's Saccaka, addressing the Buddha in a very casual way. Worthy Gautama, there are some ascetics and Brahmins who live committed to the practice of developing physical endurance without developing the mind. Now, in this case, physical endurance is called kaya bhavana. That's not a usual Buddhist term. Bhante Sujato translates this kaya bhavana as physical endurance, but further on down, the commentaries describe kaya bhavana as relating to developing mindfulness in relationship to the 5 physical senses of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching, and developing the sense restraint. So you can just put a bracket around that, knowing that this is not one of the terms of the Dhamma that you would see very often. It's just coming out in this context. So these ascetics and Brahmins who are committed to physical endurance without developing the mind suffer painful physical feelings. Their thighs become paralyzed, their heart bursts, hot blood gushes from their mouth, they go mad and lose their mind. The mind is subject to the body has no power over it. Why is that? Because the mind is not developed. Continuing the question, there's some who develop the mind without developing physical endurance, and they suffer painful mental feelings. And then the same thing happens. They become paralyzed, the heart bursts, blood gushes from their mouth, they go mad and lose their mind. So why is that? Okay. Now he goes on to make a sort of a critical comparison to some of the other ascetics that he met who are ajivaka or Jain ascetics. The Buddha says, Agivesana, what have you heard about the development of physical endurance? So, and he gives this answer. For example, and here are these 5 ascetics, Nanda Vacha, Kisa Sanchika, the bamboo staff to set a Kosala. They go naked, ignoring conventions. They lick their hands. They don't come or wait when called. They don't consent to food brought to them or food prepared on their behalf or invitation to a meal. They don't receive anything from a pot or bowl or from someone who keeps sheep or who has weapons or a shovel in their house, or where a couple is eating, or where there's a woman who's pregnant breastfeeding, a woman who lives with a man, or where there's a dog waiting or flies buzzing. They accept no fish, meat, beer, wine, drink no fermented gruel. They just go to one house for alms. They only take one mouthful. or they go to 2 houses and they took 2 mouthfuls, up to a maximum 7 mouthfuls, or they just have 1 saucer of tea, or 2 up to 7 saucers a day, and so on. And the Buddha says, how do they get by on so little? Do they get by on that little? And the answer is no, we're the Gautama. Sometimes they eat luxury fresh and cooked foods and drink a variety of luxury beverages. They gather up their body's strength, build it up, and get fat. What they gave up earlier, they get back. So that's how there's an increase and a decrease of their body. Do you know that food is quite a big problem? You know how many people in the world have eating disorders? And if a person is addicted to food, it's one of the worst addictions because you have to eat. If a person is addicted to alcohol or addicted to some other kind of drug, they can just give up alcohol or give up that drug or give up gambling completely and just go for many months and years without participating in the drinking, gambling, or whatever. But food, you have to have food every day, and yet food stirs up a lot of the dangerous, potentially unwholesome reactions of the mind in terms of craving, in terms of greed, or in terms of the mixture of nourishment and corruption, because the food is providing nutrition to the body, which is necessary nutrition for life. And at the same time, the whole digestion process has got a lot of aspects to it that are kind of like disgusting. And so it's like, you want it, but it's disgusting. So the part of the theme here is going to be about pain and pleasure. And so those previous traditions have not worked out how to solve that dichotomy. And now here, the Buddha gives meditation. According to Bhante Sujato, I don't know if it's true because I don't have his scholarship, but he said that in the earlier text, there's a lot of praise and mention about samadhi and meditation. But Buddhism, the Buddha's teaching are unique in giving specific instructions how to meditate, how to develop the mind. So much more practical in that way. So he asked, what have you heard about development of the mind? Saccaka was questioned. He was stumped. He didn't know the answer. Okay, so the Buddha says, the development of this kaya bhavana, this physical endurance that you described, is not the legitimate development of physical endurance in the Noble One's training. And since you don't even understand the development of physical endurance, how can you possibly understand development of the mind? And then it's how a person can be developed in one way and not developed another way. So someone is undeveloped in both the undeveloped is abhava, vitaka, abhava, abhavatacitto. So undeveloped in physical endurance or the mind. Abhavita kaya, kaya is body, citta mind. Here's an unlearned ordinary person. They have a pleasant feeling. When they experience a pleasant feeling, they become full of passion for it, full of raga, or full of lust or passion for that pleasant feeling. That's a kind of like an inflammation of desire. And then when that pleasant feeling ceases, and when it ceases, a painful feeling arises. And then when they have the painful feeling, they sorrow, wail, and lament, beating their breasts and falling into confusion because their physical endurance is undeveloped. So pleasant feelings occupy the mind. That means pleasant feelings take over the mind, or pleasant feelings obsess the mind. Because the mind is undeveloped, painful feelings occupy the mind, or take over the mind. Anyone whose mind is occupied by both pleasant and painful feelings is undeveloped in both the physical endurance and in mind. So they haven't developed any equanimity towards the different kinds of Vedana. They haven't seen the danger in Vedana, in feeling. They haven't become disillusioned about feeling. They don't have any wisdom with regards to feeling. And now here's someone who is developed in both physical endurance and mind, or according to the commentary, developed in both vipassana regarding the five senses and developed in samadhi regarding the mind. This learned, noble disciple who has a pleasant feeling, they experience that pleasant feeling, they don't become full of lust for it. When that feeling ceases, painful feeling arises. When they suffer painful feeling, they don't sorrow, wail, and lament, beat their breasts, fall into confusion. Because their physical endurance is developed, the feelings don't occupy the mind. Pleasant or painful doesn't occupy the mind. And now, the Gautama tells his background story. First, Saccaka, still addressing all the Buddha in a somewhat disrespectful way as Bo. That's calling him bro, friend, but not referring to him as Bhante, terms of respect. He says, I see this. I see that Gautama is developed in physical endurance and in the mind. And the Buddha answers very sternly. He says, your words are clearly invasive and intrusive, Agivesana. Because he doesn't know. Agivesana is the other epithet name for Saccaka. For this is the same person. Agivesana, I think, is the family name, and Saccaka is his personal name. So he has no way of knowing whether or not the Buddha has really accomplished, because he doesn't have 1/10 of the wisdom that he needs to be able to evaluate the Buddha. So that's why that Buddha sort of challenges him about that. But then he says, nevertheless, I will answer you. Ever since I shaved off my hair and beard, dressed in the ochre robes, went forth from lay life to homelessness, it has not been possible for any pleasant or painful feeling to occupy my mind. So from the very beginning, long before he obtained his full enlightenment, he already had the capacity for the restraint of the senses. So he was already beyond that. said, you must have experienced the kind of pleasant and painful feelings that would occupy the mind. How could I not? Before my awakening, when I was still unawakened but bent on awakening, I thought life at home is cramped and dirty. Life gone forth is wide open. It's not easy for someone living at home to lead a spiritual life that is utterly pure, full and pure, like a polished shell. Why don't I shave off my hair and beard, dress in the ochre robes, and go forth from my life into homelessness? Sometime later, while still with a pristine black beard, blessed with youth in the prime of life, though my mother and father wished otherwise, weeping with tearful faces, I shaved off my hair and beard, dressed in the robes, and went forth into homelessness. So according to this, he did not sneak out in the middle of the night and secretly run away from his family. So maybe that the other story is something that developed in the later eras. It could be that over the next 2 weeks, I will have a chance to bring you back some of the other stories that developed in the later tradition. But this is the early version. Okay, so then what happens? First, he goes to Alara Kalama. This is he's a Ajivaka teacher. He approached. There's something about this that's a little bit parallel to the procedure that a Buddhist person would follow if they were undertaking dependency on a teacher and entering into the monastic form. And in a certain way, this is showing that the Buddha was not just a complete and utter break-off from the previous traditions. He didn't just develop everything from nothing, but he, the unique and distinctive teachings the Buddha had that were never understood before, never taught before, those came after he had tested the previous traditions. So he approached and said, Reverend, I wish to lead the spiritual life in this teaching and training. And Alar Kalama replied, stay, Venerable. Now here, instead of calling him Bo with that disrespectful greeting, he's calling him Ayasma, which is a term of respect. So stay, Venerable. This is such that a sensible person can realize in their own tradition, with their own insight, and live having achieved it. So I think this means that they would be able to integrate or synthesize the tradition and make the tradition into their own, bringing their own insight to it. Their own tradition literally means what belongs to their own teacher. So in the Brahmanical system, when a teacher accepts the student, the Brahma takes him by their own insight. So there's a kind of like an initiation between the teacher and the student. I quickly memorized that teaching. So this teaching would have been based on The Vedas are on earlier texts, on the earlier views. As far as lip recital and verbal repetition went, I spoke the doctrine of knowledge, the elder doctrine, that's the Theravada. I claim to know and see, and so did others. So this is one of the first times in the early texts that you'll see the word Theravada. It has the meaning of elders, and it also, the Thera also could be related to the word titati, which means to stay, or the stable. So it's the stable doctrine, the doctrine that remains, that is unchanging. But it's, then it occurred to me, he says, it's not solely by mere faith that Alar Kalama declares, I realize this teaching with my own insight and live having achieved it. Surely he meditates, knowing and seeing this teaching. So he approached and asked to what extent they've realized it with their own insight. And then the teacher declares the dimension of nothingness. We know this as one of the fourth of the immaterial attainments, which is part of the system of meditation taught by the Buddha, although it's far more common. The Buddha mentions the four jhanas almost like universally as the meaning of an aspect of samadhi. And then the four immaterial meditations, and the ninth meditation, the meditation which is beyond feeling and perception, is also mentioned, but not mentioned as often. But these were previously existing meditation traditions. So this is an aspect of the earlier tradition that did get brought forward and transformed. It shows the continuity between the earlier traditions and the Buddha's teaching. So we would be able to assume that if the Bodhisattva has gotten that far up to the dimension of nothingness, that he must have also learned the four jhanas. And yet, whatever way he's practicing with the four jhanas here is not leading him to awakening. And then later down at the bottom of the sutta, after he recollects his childhood experience and becomes able to notice the distinction between the pure, pleasant feeling of jhana meditation being completely apart and different than sensual pleasure, then it's able to be productive or provide the ground, the base, or the space for his awakening. So one idea here is that Kalama, or the earlier teachings, this is commentarial, that the Bodhisattva was afraid of the danger of samadhi, of the pleasure, not making the distinction between the pleasure of samadhi and the pleasure of sensual pleasure. And so some kind of doubt or some kind of holding back meant that this meditation was not productive for him. Or elsewhere, the commentary says, even though he was learning these forms of meditation, he didn't have right view because he had already memorized the other philosophical system. And so he was practicing meditation on a ground which was based on wrong view, based on incorrect philosophy, incorrect understanding especially about the self, about the nature of existence. So he found out about what Alara Kalama has done. And it occurs to me, it's not just Alara Kalama who has faith, energy, mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom. So faith, energy, mindfulness, samadhi are 4 of the 5 spiritual faculties. In the system of the 5 spiritual faculties, the last one is equanimity. But then this little analysis is another something that got brought forward and transformed into the way that the path that the Buddha teaches. He said, I too have these things. Why don't I make the effort? And he did. And he quickly realized that teaching with his own insight and lived having achieved it. So he went and said, okay. He said, I've also realized it. And Kalam says, oh, you're so fortunate, so fortunate. To see a venerable such as yourself, one of our spiritual companions. And he invites the Bodhisattva to join to be a co-leader of this of his community. But the Buddha realizes this teaching doesn't lead to disillusionment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, awakening, and extinguishment. It only leads as far as rebirth in the dimension of nothingness. So realizing the teaching was inadequate, he left, disappointed. You could even say that the Bodhisattva has tested out, by now he's tested out 2 options. First, he tested out the householder life, the luxuries and pleasures of the householder's life. Then he tested out the spiritual tradition. Then he went to Uddaka, son of Rama, and a similar process. He memorized Uddaka, son of Rama, said he's able to achieve the dimension of neither perception nor non-perception. I misspoke before. This is the 4th of the immaterial meditations. And the Buddha accomplishes those. And he's invited to be a leader of this community. In this case, he's speaking to Ramaputta, the son of Rama. So the founder of that tradition had already deceased. So the one who had those attainments was already 1 generation back. And they saw the Bodhisattva as being like a second coming of the person who was able to realize what their founder, Rama, had realized. But again, he's disappointed. It doesn't lead to... this is one of the... this phrase is one of the epithets of Nibbana. It's a stock phrase. You see this in many, many, many suttas. when you see things as they really are, you see how unreliable, how fleeting, how changeable conditioned things are. You see what a little bit of temporary pleasure or satisfaction they can bring you, how quickly one can be disappointed if relying on those things, and then become, it's described here as disillusioned, this nibbida, so you've had enough, you tried, but it doesn't do it. You could say you got tired of it. Then the viraga, then the inflamed passion, the inflamed craving. The viraga goes away, you have viraga. You experience cessation, including being able to see the cessation of phenomena, and especially being able to see the cessation of dukkha. So when you stop clinging to anything that's conditioned, you can immediately experience the cessation of a big chunk of dukkha, to whatever extent this can happen for you, whether you've gone all the way or part way. And then with that comes peace, insight, higher knowledge, awakening, and extinguishment, nibbana. So he's delighted, he's disappointed there. And now he finds that he goes off on his own. I set out to discover what is skillful, seeking the supreme state of sublime peace. Traveling stage by stage in the Magadha lands, I arrived at Saina Nigama in the Uruvela. There I saw a delightful park, a lovely grove with a flowing river that was clean and charming, with smooth banks, and nearby was a village to resort to for alms. And it occurred to me, this park is truly delightful, a lovely grove, flowing river, clean, charming, smooth banks, with a village for alms nearby. This is good enough for striving, for a gentleman wanting to strive. The word gentleman is kula putta. So kula means a group. It also means a clan. It also means a herd, like a herd of cows is called a kula. So he's a son of a kula, so he's a son of his clan. He's a son of the Saccaka clan. But he's nevertheless separating from that for the purpose of his striving. Now, this next section, in a certain kind of way, this section could be swapped with the following section. The following section is about the mortification of the body. And this one is sort of generalizing about both sensual pleasure and mortification of the body. I forgot to erase the footnotes here. So suppose there's a green sappy log and it's lying in the water, and a person comes along with a fire stick and he wants to make a fire. How many know how to make a fire with a fire stick? Chintana, do you know how? No, you should know how. You get like a little bit of like a birch bark or something that's like very dry, and then you get like a dry board and a dry stick, and you make the stick twirls and twirls and twirls on this piece of dry wood, and then it starts to like warm up and finally raises to a temperature in which the little bit of birch bark or whatever the tinder is able to go under flames, and then you blow on it to make it light up a little further. So that's it. So these are brand new similes that he thought of. A person comes along thinking to light a fire. Can he do it? No, he can't because it's all wet. They'll get weary and frustrated. So if there's an ascetic or a Brahmin who is not withdrawn in body and mind from sensual pleasures, and they have not internally given up or stilled desire, affection, infatuation, thirst, and passion for sensual pleasures, regardless of whether or not they feel painful, sharp, severe, acute feelings due to overexertion, they're still incapable of knowledge and vision of supreme awakening. So when you come to the explanation of the jhana, the very beginning is secluded from sense pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states of mind. So he's discovering a more practical sense of the significance of the jhana. Then there's the second example. Here's a green sappy log, and it's lying on dry land, far from the water. And a person tries to start a fire. Can he do it? No, he still can't do it because it's a green sappy log. So even though it's on dry land, far from water, they still will get frustrated. And this is compared to those ascetics and Brahmins who are withdrawn from sensual pleasures, but they have not yet internally given up or stilled desire, affection, infatuation, thirst, and passion for sensual pleasures. So they've removed themselves physically from all of the shows and entertainment and beautiful dancers and music, et cetera, and all those pleasant pleasures. They've withdrawn from that, but still, it's an inside job. They have to do that inner purification. And in which step of the Noble Eightfold Path do you purify the mind? Venerable? On which step of the Noble Path do you purify the mind? Of the, well, all of them, but right effort, right? Because with right effort in particular, this is the first step of meditation, is to look at the state of mind and learn how to prevent the unwholesome states from arising, or learn how to recognize them if they arise and to abandon them when they arise, how to cultivate the good ones. Yes, it's true, of course, every step is a purification. And then example, third example, it's a little bit challenging. It's like, if you were on Madison Avenue and you wanted to put up a billboard, try Buddhism. It will be like being a dried up, withered log lying on dry land far from the water. You're in Wonderland. Have a nice holiday. But then this person, they can take the drill stick and they can try to start a fire, and they will start a fire. They will produce fire. They will produce heat. And why? Because they are withdrawn from sensual pleasures and they have internally given up and still desire, affection, infatuation, and so on. So he thought of those three similes. And so it does sort of make sense in this order. So he's realized the importance both externally and internally of getting seclusion from sensual pleasures. And so how can he get seclusion from sensual pleasures? Well, I could try with my teeth clenched and tongue pressed against the roof of the mouth to squeeze, squash, and scorch the mind with the mind. And so that's what I did until sweat ran from my armpits, like when a strong man grabs a weaker man by the head or throat or shoulder and squeezes, squashes, and crushes them. In the same way, this is actually the most lightest of all of the extreme practices. And elsewhere in the Sutta number 20 in the Middle Length Discourses about the various ways of pacifying the unwholesome states of mind. This is the extremist of the ways to pacify the mind. If everything else fails in desperation, you can try this one. He says, my energy was roused, unflagging, my mindfulness established and lucid, but my body was disturbed and not tranquil because I pushed too hard with that painful striving. But even these painful feelings still did not occupy the mind. So he's still achieved something that his predecessors didn't achieve because he's able to endure painful feelings without having his mind being taken over, not being driven to madness because of painful feelings. Then we come off to these other practices, the breathless absorption. He cuts off the breathing through the mouth and nose. The wind come out the ears, making a loud noise, like puffing a blacksmith's bellows. And he strives with that. His mindfulness is clear and lucid, but the body is disturbed, not tranquil. He pushed too hard with that painful striving, painful feeling. So then he cuts off the breathing, breathless meditation, so that there arise strong winds grinding the head, like a strong man drilling into the head with a sharp point. And still, his body is pained, but still the painful feeling doesn't occupy the mind. So with all of this striving, the Buddha is, or the Bodhisattva is accomplishing something. He's becoming fearless towards painful physical feelings. He's gained the ability, it's an aspect of the restraint of the senses, that he doesn't become mentally obsessed because of painful feelings. So he got a headache, like a strong man tightening a tough leather strap around the head. He cuts off breathing through the mouth, nose, and ears. Strong winds carve up the belly, like a butcher slicing the belly with a meat cleaver. And he experiences intense burning in his body, like two strong men throwing a weak man into a pit of glowing coals. And then after all of this, some deities saw him and said, the ascetic Gautama is dead. Others said, no, he's not dead, but he's dying. And others said, no, he's not dead or dying. He's the perfected one, and this is how perfected ones live. He tried cutting off food. And the deity said, good fellow, don't totally cut off the food. If you do that, we will infuse heavenly nectar into your pores and you will live on that. So he could not do complete deities because of the deities. So he just takes a little bit of food, just a handful of broth from mung beans, horse gram, chickpeas, green gram. The body became completely emaciated. His bottom was like a camel's hoof. His vertebrae stuck out like beads on a string. His ribs were like broken down rafters on an old barn. The skin of the belly stuck to the backbone. When I tried to rub the skin of my belly, I grabbed my backbone. When I tried to relieve my body by rubbing my limbs, the hair was rotten and fell out by the roots. Some people who saw me said, the Asata Gautama is black. Some said, no, he's not black, he's brown. And some said, no, he's not black, he's not brown, he has tawny skin. But he's very far from his pure golden complexion that he had before. So he does all of this for some period. And then he thought, whatever ascetics and Brahmins have experienced painful, sharp, severe, acute feelings due to overexertion, whether in past, future, or present, this is as far as it goes. No one has done more than this, but I have not achieved any superhuman distinction in knowledge and vision worthy of the noble ones by this severe, grueling work. Could there be another path to awakening? It occurred to me. I recall sitting in the cool shade of a black plum tree while my father, the Sakyan, was off working. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unskillful qualities, I entered and remained in the first absorption, which has rapture and bliss born of seclusion, while placing the mind and keeping it connected. This is a standardized, became the standard description of the first jhana, the first stage of samadhi. And he thought, could that be the path to awakening? And from his memory came this understanding. That is the path to awakening. And then it occurred to me, why am I afraid of that pleasure? For it has nothing to do with sensual pleasures or unskillful qualities. Then I thought, I am not afraid of that pleasure, for it has nothing to do with sensual pleasures or unskillful qualities. Then I thought, I can't achieve that pleasure of the body, so excessively emaciated. Why don't I eat some solid food, some rice and porridge? So I ate some solid food. Now at that time, the 5 mendicants were attending on me, thinking, the Asata Gautama will tell us of any truth he realizes. But when I ate some solid food, they left, disappointed in me, saying, the Asata Gautama has become indulgent. He has strayed from the struggle and returned to indulgence. Eating the solid food, getting his strength, still secluded from sense pleasures, he goes into the first jhana. He has that rapture and bliss. Even such pleasant feelings did not occupy my mind. So in a certain way, this is a parallel to the mortification practice he has. He subjects himself to the severe of the pain, and the painful feeling does not occupy the mind. And here, the pleasure of jhana, that pleasant feeling of jhana, does not occupy the mind. Then in the second jhana, placing the mind and keeping it connected, He enters the second absorption, which has rapture and bliss born of immersion with internal clarity and mind at one, without placing the mind and keeping it connected. That pleasant feeling does not occupy the mind. With the fading away of rapture, stays in the third jhana, where I meditate with equanimity, mindful and aware, personally experiencing the bliss of which the noble ones declare. Equanimous and mindful, one meditates in bliss. And still the pleasant feeling doesn't occupy the mind. And then giving up pleasure and pain, ending the former happiness and sadness, he stays in the fourth jhana without pleasure or pain, with pure equanimity and mindfulness. Even such pleasant feeling did not occupy my mind. I'm going to pause a second. The computer is too intelligent. I think a few days ago I did that. I'm going to put my hand up. I would invite your thoughts about the part that we just looked at. And in particular, whether it's true that some kind of a deep confusion between sensual pleasure and the pleasure of jhana could become a block to one's awakening. If you don't know the difference and you're trying to become freed from attachment to sensual pleasure, that maybe that doubt or something could be a block to being able to cultivate jhana. So dimension of nothingness is different from nibbana. Yes, absolutely different. You could go to the dimension of nothingness, and it's much more calm than like in the Tusita heaven or the Brahma realm. You can go to those realms, and everything you experience is going to be really pleasant. Everything you see is pleasant, and everything you smell is pleasant. Everything you taste is pleasant. That's sort of like heavenly, but the dimension of nothingness is really neutral. It's experiencing emptiness, no thing, shunyata, and you could stay there for a large number of eons, like 84,000 eons, and then eventually that karma would wear out and you would come back to a birth. I'd like to invite Richard to add some comments to this.
Thank you, Aya. Just a couple of points. The section, and this is appears in a number of places in the sutta, where it says he vomited hot blood, like that. But I think if you look carefully at the Pali, it's not quite saying that. I think what it's just saying is that he's straining so much, and even his legs are becoming, like cramped and painful and everything, right? That his face turns red. And due to this tremendous strain and everything, that pain and suffering invades his mind. And so he gives up, either permanently or temporarily. So when Buddha is saying that no pain or no sensual desire invaded my mind and remained, He's coupling those two concepts. What he means is that, yes, he experienced pain, but it never stopped him from striving. Yes, maybe he thought one time about, boy, it'd be nice to have something to eat right now. I only got this old, rotten rice or something, today's meal or nothing. He might have thought, but it didn't stop him. He never turned back, because some people will practice spiritual searching, whatever, for a certain period of time, and maybe they have some problem or and they leave. You may even see this among bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, right? They may leave, but then maybe they'll come back again and put the robes on again, right? Take the vows again. So that's what the Buddha was saying. In his case, from the moment he left home, he never stopped. No matter what he encountered, he just kept going. So another point is that when he was doing the holding his breath, and then he says he felt winds coming out of his ears, he actually popped his eardrums, and he was actually breathing through his ears, because then the next section that says he blocked his ears too, for the next couple of sections, because he realized that he had temporarily damaged his eardrums. I've damaged my eardrums before, and in most cases they will heal, back up. So it doesn't necessarily, especially he's still a young man, very powerful, very strong, right? He can heal up over time. Now, there's another question about fourth jhana. There's a number of places in the sutta where Buddha goes through the jhanas, and then he says from fourth jhana, he attains nibbana. But you have to remember that sometimes Buddha explains things in brief, right? And sometimes he explains them in more detail, okay? So sometimes when he's describing, because all of the formless attainments are, you might say, further attainments within the fourth jhana. So he doesn't necessarily have to list all those things off. He's just making the point that you must stabilize your mind in fourth jhana, and then from there you can attain these various things like seeing your past lives, seeing the nature of all beings to pass away and become something temporarily, another thing and another thing and another thing like that. And that's part of what gives him the ability to break through and let go of those desires, right? A desire for becoming, basically, the five hindrances, the five higher, what do they call them? Higher hindrances, lower hindrances? I don't remember, but anyways, like that. Did we get to the part where he talks about he attained nibbana yet? I don't think so. Oh, I can't hear you. Yeah, I see.
Sorry, it's coming up. That we're not
Okay.
yet up to.
I had a comment about that, but I don't want to make it yet if we haven't got there yet.
Okay.
It just occurred to me as I was writing some of these other things down.
Okay, great.
Oh,
Thank you.
One other point.
Yeah.
One other point is about that section about the sappy, wet piece of wood, and Bhikkhu Bodhi also in his lecture series from, I don't know, 20-something years ago, he also says when he gets to that section, he says, this seems to be out of order here. And he tries to think what would be the correct order and stuff like that. And but then after a little while, he says, oh, okay, okay, just forget it. We'll just go on with the way it is. So that's easily noticeable. But another point I would like to bring up is, and I've mentioned this before, and nobody has to agree with me, the Buddha went and practiced the austerities first. You're not going to go up to these high levels of formlessness and then think, oh, and now I must go back and torture my body endlessly. You've gone way beyond that psychologically and mentally, okay? Now, when you look at the structure of the suttas, the first one where Buddha's enlightenment is mentioned is number 4, and then there's number 26, and in 26, he doesn't mention the austerities at all. I can't remember if he does in 4 or not, but in 36, you'll see a lot of these suttas later on, 80 and 100, I think. and they're referring back to 36 when the austerity section is there. Okay, look this up. In other words, instead of reprinting it, they say, oh, just go here. So that means that the Pali is exactly the same between those suttas. And that seems to indicate that it could just be copied and possibly, due to a misunderstanding, copied into the wrong place. But again, no one has to accept what I'm saying on that. But I just can't see anyone attaining, formlessness and then think they have to come and torture their body. They're two totally different things.
Right.
In my opinion. Okay. Thank you for listening.
We see this very similar presentation with different parts included or left out, and in the middle length in 26, 36, 85, and 100. And then there's another sutta, we might get to it maybe next week, in the Sutta Nipata. It's called the Bodhisattva. It's 3.2 in the Sutta Nipata, which is quite different in its presentation. There is a certain kind of a logic the whole argument in the sutta is about what he's talking about, the physical endurance of being able to endure physical hardship, and whether or not that's even legitimate or valid as an aspect or a part of the practice. But this is just my idea. It's not what I've heard from others. If the reason why the teaching of the other teachers didn't work was because they didn't have right view. And so not having right view is not really understanding what dukkha is or what the end of dukkha is, and being into profound confusion about how sensual pleasure is relating to dukkha, because pain and pleasure at one sort of like a simple level, they're the two opposites. There's a painful experience and pleasant, and so you think of dukkha as the opposite of sukha, and then you want to you came to be a dissolution like with sukha, you realize that's not the answer, but you don't know really how to purify the mind from sukha because you haven't gained the right view. You don't know how to break out of it, and so then one might try as an experiment saying, well, I could overcome my addiction to pleasure by going through all these mortifications. And I'm, whether it would be a logical sequence, as you say, for someone who's accomplished those profound meditation up to the formless meditations, and still be attracted to those extreme ascetical practices. That's possible. I don't know, but let's go back and read a little bit more of the sutta, unless there's any more questions so far. Okay. And now comes the three knowledges. When my mind had immersed in samadhi like this, purified, bright, flawless, rid of corruptions, pliable, workable, steady, imperturbable, I extended it towards the recollection of past lives. I recollected many kinds of past lives with features and details. That was the first knowledge I achieved in the first watch of the night. Ignorance was destroyed and knowledge arose. Darkness was destroyed and light arose, as happens for a meditator who is diligent, keen, and resolute. But even such pleasant feelings did not occupy my mind. So this recollection of past lives, how amazing, how incredible to have that experience. But still, the pleasant feeling connected to that pleasant feeling does not overwhelm the mind. Then the mind is immersed in samadhi like this, and then with a clairvoyance that is purified and superhuman, I saw sentient beings, all sentient beings in the world, passing away and being reborn, inferior and superior, beautiful and ugly, in a good state or a good place or a bad place. I understood how sentient beings are reborn according to their deeds. Some renditions of the enlightenment sequence have 6 knowledges. And in this case, they're giving 3 knowledges. So this is vidya, and we think that it's a sort of a comment about the 3 Vedas of the earlier traditions. So he's counterposing his 3 new knowledges never known before, that never arose before, against the tradition of the 3 Vedas, the ancient and antique system of knowledge. So that was the second knowledge. Ignorance destroyed, knowledge arose. Darkness destroyed, light arose. Still the pleasant feeling doesn't occupy the mind. Then the mind is immersed in samadhi. And then I truly understood. Then he extended the mind towards knowledge of the ending of defilements. This is what's translated as defilements, is the word asava, which is sometimes translated as pollution or a taint. This is sometimes compared to like some kind of like an infection that can come in and get into the body. Or sometimes it's expressed as something like a pus or some kind of poison that's like coming out of the body. But in any case, it's kind of like gross and disgusting. And it's also completely associated with the round of samsara. So in the, you have a list given of either 3 or 4 of these taints. The taint of sensual desire, sensual craving, the taint of becoming, which is associated with the craving or the longing for rebirth in a heavenly realm, the taint of non-becoming or non-existence, which is the craving for annihilation, which is based on aversion. And then sometimes you have the taint of views being captured by wrong views. And very often, this is when they talk about nirodha, about cessation, they speak of these taints in terms of being cut off, finished, destroyed, completely gone, completely ceased, not able to grow back again. Like if you chop down a banana tree, the banana tree does not grow back from the roots. When you cut it down, it's completely finished and will not come to life again. Or you could say, if you destroy a fruit and then you burn the seed, so that the seed is no longer connected to the cycle of rebirth again. So he's extending towards the knowledge of the ending of defilements, and then he truly understands the Four Noble Truths. This is dukkha, this is the origin of dukkha, this is the cessation of dukkha, this is the practice leading to the cessation of dukkha. Are directing mind towards these very same defilements. These are the defilements. This is the origin of the defilements. This is the cessation of the defilements. This is the practice that leads to the cessation of the defilements. Knowing and seeing like this, my mind was freed from the defilements of sensuality. Okay, in this list, desire to be reborn, and ignorance, avidya, asava. When it was freed, I knew it was freed. I understood rebirth is ended. The spiritual journey is complete. What had to be done has been done. There's nothing further for this place. So that's the third knowledge that he achieved in the last watch of the night. And even then, the pleasant feeling does not occupy the mind. And then Saccaka says, do you ever recall sleeping during the day? And the Buddha says, yes, I remember. Sometimes in the last month of summer, I spread out my outer robe, folded in four, and I laid down in the lion's posture on the right side, placing one foot at the top of the other, mindful and aware. And I did take a nap. Saccaka says, some ascetics call that deluded. And the Buddha said, that's not how to define whether someone's deluded or not. Listen, and I'll explain it. Anyone who has not giving up the defilements that are corrupting, leading to future lives, hurtful, resulting in suffering and future rebirth, old age, and death, is deluded. It's not giving up the defilements that makes you deluded. Anyone who has given up the defilements that are corrupting, leading to future lives, hurtful, resulting in suffering, is not deluded. So it's about delusion. It's not about naps. He said, I'm a realized one. The realized one has given up the defilements that are corrupting, leading to future lives, just like a palm tree with the crown cut off, incapable of further growth. And at the very end, Saccaka says, oh, all right, it's incredible, it's worthy that this Gautama, even though he's attacked with inappropriate and intrusive criticism, like what I've been feeding you, the complexion of the skin brightens, the color of his face is clear, like a perfected one, a fully awakened Buddha. When I took on the other monks about this in debate, I took on Purana Kassapa. He dodged the issue, distracting the discussion with irrelevant points, displaying ignorance, annoyance, hate, and bitterness. So he goes through all this, and he says, well, at least you're better than the other fellows. Well, now, worthy Gautama, Bo, I have many duties and much to do. Bye-bye. And so he approved with what the Buddha said and got up and left, but he didn't take refuge. So this sutta it's quite a bit of a sort of a mixed bag of going from the sublime to the ridiculous, but it does contain that very important moment when the Buddha turns away from self-mortification and recollects the natural experience that he had as a child of entering into jhana and understanding that the danger of sensual pleasure is not that meditation, the pleasure, the bliss of meditation does not have the same danger as the dangers of sensual pleasure. So don't be afraid of jhana. Don't be afraid of happiness and meditation. So we spent another delightful 2.5 hours reading the words of the Buddha. We didn't have very much time for discussion today, but I'll try again next week to bring something that's a little more short and juicy that will invite participation. So please be happy and meditate in happiness. Seek samadhi, seek tranquility. Don't punish yourself with meditation, but reward yourself with meditation. We're coming up, it's only 2 weeks until Vesak. And if you want to do what the Buddha did, then you should practice meditation for 2 weeks. And then you can wake up and spend the weeks after that contemplating what you've realized through your awakening. Araham Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamman Namasami Subhatipanno Bhagavata Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Thank you for your patient listening today and for your practice.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.